Hello, and welcome to day 28 of Business English 2. Fortunately, it's quiet now, and I'm able to do the recording. My neighbors are asleep, and you probably are too, but at least I can record this without any construction noise going on in the background. So in our last class, we looked at block and modified block letter styles. Remember, on the block style, everything lines up on the left margin here, that left edge. Remember the margins? That's like the frame around the edge of the paper. So you have a top margin, a bottom margin, a left margin, and a right margin. Margins for a business letter, you usually want about 1 inch. Okay. Oops. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. Okay. So you could just say 2.5 centimeters is close enough. That's the amount of blank space. If you think of it kind of like a picture frame. The frame around a picture, you have some space. That gives you some space around the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. So you want that about 1 inch. If it's too narrow, it just looks too crowded and too tight. Everything's shoved onto the page. If the margin is really wide, it doesn't look balanced. It doesn't look good. And this is the left margin. So when you're doing block style, you want everything that you type to begin at that left margin. You do not indent. When you indent, of course, that's when you, instead of starting on the left margin here, you move it over a centimeter, half an inch. Okay? So we don't want to do that in the block style. It's just neat, clean, and simple. Keep everything right here. And of course, we talked about the parts of the letter. We have the letterhead here. That's the name and the address, contact information, website, email address, phone number, fax number. We have the little image here that represents the company. That's the company logo. The image, the picture. Then we have the date line. The inside address, that's who it's going to. The salutation, that's the greeting. Remember the word salute. The subject line in block letters. The body of the letter, that's the letter itself. We have the complimentary close. Sincerely, or thank you, or yours truly, okay, followed by a comma. Then we have the signature block, which is the signature and the typed name and possibly the person's title. Okay. Remember, the signature and the typed name must match. They should be exactly the same. If you're including something with it, then you would have the word enclosure or enclosures down here if you're including things. And this has what they call mixed punctuation. So after the salutation, you have a colon. After the complimentary close, you have a comma. We also looked at this one, which is a personal business style. This is not on company letterhead, so we don't have the letterhead, we don't have the logo. So instead of that, we have the return address here at the top. That's the sender's address, which we call the return address, followed immediately by the date line. Okay, there's no space here. So, and we don't have the name here, okay, because it's coming from an individual. The name is just down here at the bottom. So this address at the top is Mr. Vinton's address. Okay, so we have the street address, city, state, zip code, and then the date line. then inside address, salutation, the body, complimentary close, signature block, enclosure. Okay? Now what makes this personal business style is that if you folded the paper down the middle, you'd have this middle point here. This is where the inside address, the return address, the date line, and the complimentary close and signature block are all on that center. They begin at that center line. Okay? But everything else is basically the same style, same format. Notice these items when we introduce this list of our qualifications. We have 3 things here. You might have at least 2 if you're going to bullet them. The bullet, that's the little dot there, just like it got shot. Okay, a little round circle. You'd want at least 2 to maximum probably 4 or 5. Okay, 3 is sort of a magic number. That's like the kind of the best number. We often put things in lists of 3. Okay, it's just sort of a nice balanced number, easy for people to remember. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. And notice before we introduce that list, we use a colon here after the word offer, the colon, to introduce a list of items. Whether that list is numbered, like we saw on the one with the questions from Graphic Pros, where the questions were numbered 1, 2, 3, or we're using bullet points here. They're not numbered, but they're put in a list. Makes it easy to read, easy to follow. Excuse me. Now we have another business letter, another cover letter. Remember, you'd send the cover letter with your resume. And this is an actual letter, a real letter that was sent to a university in Korea by somebody who was looking for a job there. A teaching job, teaching English, similar to what I'm doing here, except not in a business department, just regular, regular English courses. So this is the letter that they sent. Yeah, you'll notice they have a picture here. Obviously, I've covered up their real picture. I never actually saw the real picture. It had been marked out. In Korea, it's very common, it's expected, even required, to include a photo when you're applying for a job. Many places, at least. Either on your cover letter or on your resume or sent as a separate attachment. That's very normal in Korea. In the U.S., you would not do that. In the U.S., when you apply for a job, you would not include a photo, because that could be used for discrimination, racial discrimination based on race or age or sex or just your physical appearance, because your physical appearance really should not affect whether or not you receive a job. Now, the exception to that would be if you're applying for a modeling job or an acting job where your appearance is relevant to the position, to what you're doing. But for a teaching job, for an accountant, for a banker, physical appearance is not important. It shouldn't be important. Okay? So we would not include a photo in the U.S. That would be, actually, for an employer to ask for that would probably be considered illegal. Okay? So let me just zoom in on the rest of the letter here now. Okay, I'm just cutting the picture off. We'll go straight to this part. So this person put their name here, okay, and they're kind of doing a personal business style. They put their name here, which you don't need to do. Because you're going to sign it at the bottom. So you don't need your name here. They put their address here, Daejeon. This was the older zip code, Korea. You would not use a comma between the city and the zip code. Okay, and this looks odd. I would probably write Daejeon, comma, Korea, and then just the zip code at the end. Like in the U.S., we would write city, comma, state, two-letter abbreviation, and then the zip code. So I would probably write this as Daejeon, Korea, space, and then the zip code. In this case, and of course now you would want to, instead of using this 6-digit zip code in Korea, you'd have the new 5-digit zip code that's been around for several years, but a lot of people still use this old one for a long time. Actually, it would still appear on mail. It took a long time for businesses to adjust, to change to the new format. And then they have their email address here, okay, something@yahoo.com. Normally, again, you would not put your phone number or email address up here. You would include it in the closing of the letter down here. So it looks kind of odd to have it here. Also, up here, you notice between each of these lines, there's like a blank line here, extra space. These should be, the address here should be single spaced, just like the lines of the body down here. So we've got some extra blank lines here, and the date line is missing. Okay, so this is not formatted properly, and we have some information we do not need. There's no date line. There is also no inside address. We don't know where this is going or who it's going to. Again, that should be included. Now we have the name here, Lee, Myung-in. This is a little more complicated because it depends on what information you have. Obviously, this is in Korea. Lee would be the family name. In this case, I would write it the way that it is written in the ad, except I would not use a comma there. I would just write Lee Myung-in. Now, is Lee Myung-in a man or a woman? I don't know. Okay, and I've asked classes in the past, is this a man's name or a woman's name? And they don't agree. So some names you can tell by looking, oh, this is a man's name, or this is a woman's name. Other names are interchangeable. They're kind of unisex names. They could be used for a man or a woman. Okay, and there's a lot of those in English as well. Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you cannot. So, I understand why they did not say Dear Mr. Lee or Dear Ms. Lee if they're not sure. If it's not listed in the advertisement, you can be safe. If it's a professor at the university, you could say Professor Lee. So you could, maybe they could have said Professor Lee. Okay. Or if they're pretty sure it's a professor, they could say Dr. Lee, maybe. But the thing they forgot is Dear. Dear Professor Lee. And then, of course, it's a business letter, so you would want to use a colon, not a comma. Okay? So this just, with the comma here, this just looks really odd, looks really strange. So, spacing information is wrong here, no dateline, no inside address, and the salutation is written poorly. So we're not off to a good start. But let's see, maybe the body will help. My name is, and of course that's blocked out. I don't know the person's name. The person who copied this for me had already made these marks on it and had marked out some of the information here. My name is something, and I'd like to be considered for the position of blah blah. Blah blah? Okay, obviously that doesn't look good. Let me back up a little bit here. I'd like to be considered. I'd, of course, is the contraction for I would. In a business letter, in a professional letter, you want to avoid contractions. Okay, so no contractions. And I would say especially in Korea, where the person reading this may not be a native English speaker, using especially a less common contraction like this is a little dangerous. If you're using I'm, maybe most people, I think, would recognize that. I'd is a little more complicated. Okay, it's not as common, so I would not want to use that in Korea, where the person reading it is less likely to know that contraction, because it's just not used as much. We use it, but in professional writing it doesn't belong. I'd like to be considered for the position of blah blah. Okay, obviously blah blah is not a position. What happened here? This person made sort of a template, a common cover letter, a letter that they used over and over for many different positions. Obviously, that's normal, and that's to be expected, and that saves a lot of time. To have a letter that you can modify, that you can edit, that you can tailor to a specific job and position. Every time you send it to a different school or company, you'd want to change it to fit that position more specifically. And I'm sure that was their intention here, but they put in blah blah, and they forgot to change it, which is obviously a bad thing to do. If you're going to do something like this, at least put it in red or highlight it so that you easily see that before you send the letter. And then once you change it, then once you edit it, then you can change it back to just black type. But if you're going to leave sort of a blank like that, make sure that it's something obvious, that you can easily see it. A safer way to do it, because sometimes you get in a hurry, you forget, you make a mistake, and that happens to all of us. Do something safe. So I'd like to be considered for the position of English instructor. Use something more general, okay? In this case, they were applying for a teaching position. At least this way, maybe the ad says language instructor or language professor, or maybe it doesn't exactly say English instructor. But if you use this, at least if you forget to change it, it's not a disaster. Because this is a disaster. This is a huge mistake. Okay? So be safe, be careful. Don't write something that's going to look really stupid if you forget to change it. Because you will. You will, if you're sending out job applications to 20 or 50 or 100 companies, you will make a mistake. You will accidentally send the wrong letter to the wrong company. And I know I did that when I was applying for jobs. I think I had the wrong, several years ago I was sending letters to several places, and somewhere I forgot to change like the university name or something, and I sent it to a different university. Obviously, they did not get back to me because I had made a really stupid mistake. And that happens. That's life. Mistakes will happen, but you want to try to minimize the damage, and this was serious damage. My resume will show. Note is a little odd word here. My resume will show that I have 5 years of teaching experience in Korean universities, and that I have over 10 years teaching experience overall at every level. We've looked at this before. 5 years possessive. If you have the possessive form here, you do not need the word of. So you'd write 5 years teaching experience in Korean universities. And that I have over 10 years teaching experience overall. Okay, here you would need 10 years possessive or 10 years of. So here they have the possessive and the of. Here they don't have either one. So both of these are incorrect. So they used 2 different styles, 2 different methods to try to write this, and got both of them wrong. This is from the Amazon Books website, their description online. Notice how they write this. With more than 20 years experience, we bring you a curated store of customer favorite books. Okay, 20 years S apostrophe. This is how you write it. Okay, that is the correct way to do it. So, both of these are wrong. This one is wrong, and this one is wrong. At every level. Every level? From kindergarten through graduate school? Okay, that's a little vague. Okay. I have taught TOEIC classes, and I am currently enrolled in a TESOL certification course. Expected graduation date, January 2012. And that looks okay. Alright, that's a good way to say that. If you have not graduated yet, but you're expecting to soon, you can write it like this. Expected graduation date, and then the month and the year. Personally, I am married, and my wife and I are expecting our second child in January. Is that relevant to a teaching position? No, it's not really. And there's a couple things wrong with this as well. First of all, personally, I am married. When we use the word personally, that's more of a personal opinion. This isn't an opinion, it's a fact. So I might say something like, personally, I don't like seafood. I could say, seafood is very popular. Many people love seafood. My dad loves seafood. But personally, I don't like it. Personally, it's like in my personal life or my personal opinion. Personally, I think seafood is disgusting. I don't like it. Okay? So, incorrect usage of the word personally. I'm married and my wife and I are expecting our second child in January, so please, 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 please give me a job because I have a wife and 2 kids and I need money. It sounds like they're begging. It sounds a little desperate. So again, try to, that's not relevant to the position. When I'm not teaching, again, avoid contractions. When I'm not teaching, I write sports articles for yahoo.com. Yahoo! !.com, is that how you write that? No, the website is called Yahoo, but the web address is yahoo.com. The exclamation point is not part of the internet address. Okay? This mark, we call it exclamation point or exclamation mark. Alright? Exclamation point or mark. You exclaim something. It's like you're excited. Yahoo! Okay? It's part of the company name. You'll see it in the sort of their logo here. You do, or I guess this is the logo, just the Y with the exclamation point, but it is not part of the internet address. No exclamation point. So he's written this incorrectly, and actually, if you're writing yahoo.com, this is not a capital Y. Okay, I'm also a professional guitar player. Also, of course, should be also. I'm also a professional guitar player with over 20 years of experience in various genres, but mainly in blues and rock. Is that relevant to teaching English? No, it's not. Not unless you're somehow using that in your teaching. That I play guitar and I've used it to create songs to help students learn. Okay? Otherwise, it's not really relevant. Now, the good thing he did here, I'm also a professional guitar player with over 20 years of experience. This is correct, 20 years of experience. So he wrote this phrase 3 times, incorrectly, and finally on the 3rd try, he got it right. Okay? But this whole paragraph is really not relevant. You can contact me at my information above. Just give your information down here, or at least, excuse me, at least your phone number and email address here, which he did. I believe this was a phone number that is covered up here. Okay, you can reach me at this number at any time, and that is a normal phrase. You can reach me at any time. Okay, but in this last paragraph, I would include your contact information. Not your street address, but your email address and your phone number. Thank you for your consideration. That's a really short paragraph. I would combine that with this. Okay, I would do a little bit more of a summary here. And so if we take this out because it's not relevant, we basically have a very, very short letter. I would say he should focus on some of his teaching experience and put a couple of bullet points in here. Would make this much better. And then sincerely, signature, and we don't have the typed name here. So this letter is pretty much a disaster. Okay? Lots and lots of problems with it. Now, this other one I sent you from John Smith to Mr. George Gilhooly. I sent you this for practice. This has a lot of problems, a lot of mistakes, and things that you can look for to try to practice before the final exam. Okay, so you can look at that. I'm not going to go over it in class. Now, if you're going to send a cover letter, that of course would go along with a resume. This is sort of a modified version of my own resume. We're not going to do that in class. Obviously, we're at the end of the semester here. But you would include your cover letter with your resume. You would put those together, the cover letter on top. Not a cover letter like this, but make sure he did basically do block style here, but he had the formatting wrong. Remember to follow these guidelines. Okay, if it's a personal letter, you won't have the letterhead, but you'll have all of the other elements here, and follow that block style, more like Mr. Vinton did here. Now this one, of course, he did that personal style. I don't really care for this style. It's a little less formal, and it's just easier to make mistakes. The letter itself is really good. It's really well written. The letter is great. I would just change the formatting. I would put these over on the left margin. Okay, I would follow total block style. This is not wrong. I just think block style is more common now. It's more formal. So either one is okay, but I prefer block style. It's just easier. Remember the mixed punctuation. Use a colon here, use a comma here. Okay? All right. Now, let's switch a little bit. We have a little more time here. This is our last class. This is the last chance for me to share some fun stuff with you. And I just want to share a few homonyms or words that sound very similar. So I want to go over a few of those today. And some of these may show up on the final exam, so take some notes. So you know these two men, of course. This is President Moon and Kim Jong-un, okay, from North Korea, obviously, the leaders of South Korea and North Korea. Here we have a picture of President Moon and President Trump shaking hands. And then here at the summit, I believe this was the first one in Singapore, we have a photo, of course, of Kim Jong-un and President Trump shaking hands. And this was a really historical moment for the U.S. and North Korea to have a summit. And at a beauty pageant held in Singapore, I think it was in Singapore, shortly after that, this is the dress that Miss Singapore wore. Notice she has the feathers here like a dove, the bird of peace, and on the dress there's like two sticks that kind of you can fold out to open up the dress, open up the bottom part, and it has the handshake between the two leaders. And you can see here the images from Singapore, the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, the big Ferris wheel, I forget what this is called, the garden by the bay, I think. It's like the fake trees, but it's a very popular tourist spot. Okay, so even she, on her dress, they used images, the image of that summit, to kind of show that Singapore was a place where peace could happen. Now, we have here, of course, President Trump. Do you know this man? Do you know who he is? That is President Macron from France. When they had their presidential election a few years ago, the two main candidates were Marine Le Pen. Marine is her first name, like the Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, except Marine, and then she has a two-part last name, Le Pen, Marine Le Pen, and of course Emmanuel Macron. They were the two opponents, the two candidates for president. And people had fun with this because their names sounded similar to a couple of other things. Le Pen sounds similar to penne. Penne is a type of pasta. You can see here it's this pasta with a tube shape, kind of an angled cut on the end, but this kind of long pasta with a tube shape. So Le Pen sounded a little bit like penne pasta, and Macron sounds a little bit like macaroni. And macaroni is also a tube-shaped pasta, but generally not as fat, not as wide, and often curved. We actually call that type elbow macaroni because it's curved, rounded, kind of like your elbow, the shape. So people had fun with that, calling them penne and macaroni. So which one would win? Marine Le Pen or Emmanuel Macron? Penne or macaroni? So people kind of had fun with that. They made some memes about it. Here they use Le Pen, Le Penne instead of Le Pen, and macaroni instead of Macron. Sort of making a little joke about their names. So people have fun with these things like this. Just a little language entertainment, a little language humor. And using Macron, people also found some other homonyms, or not exactly homonyms, because homonyms sound exactly the same, but very similar sounding words. Words with a similar pronunciation. So, at the bottom here, we have Macron, and you can see he's the president of France. Macron. Macron. Okay, Macron. And you guys might be more familiar with these. The pink picture here. This is a macaron. Macaron. So notice it's similar here, except it's 3 syllables. Instead of Macron, Macron, you have macaron. The end is the same, ron, but here it's just macaron, and here you have macaron. And these cookies are pretty difficult to make, actually. They're almond-based. They're made with almond flour. So the flour, that's like the powder you get from grinding something. Like bread and cookies are usually made with wheat flour. That white powder they get from grinding the wheat. And of course you make rice flour. That's where you get like the rice cakes and the kind of the chewy breading they put on things, or the donuts made with the rice flour. And then almond flour is also a powder made from grinding the almonds into a really fine powder. They're made with almond flour, egg whites, only the white part of the egg, not the yellow part, and sugar. They're difficult to make. I've seen people make them on TV. Very complicated and can easily have problems. And a delicate meringue texture. The meringue texture, that's the egg whites and the sugar. Okay? These are really popular in Korea now. There's little shops everywhere. And there's another cookie up here called a macaroon. So, macaroon. So here you have macaroon, macaron, like macron. So these have the same ending sound, ron. This one is a little different, roon, but the beginning is the same as this one, macaroon. Macaroons are coconut-based. They're made with shredded coconut, not a flour, but just shredded coconut, like shredded cheese, like little fine, thin strips of coconut. Egg whites and sugar. So, egg whites and sugar again, but this is made with almond flour, this is made with coconut. These are pretty easy to make, and they're kind of crunchy on the outside, a little crispy, okay? Baked on the outside and chewy, soft and chewy because of the coconut. Before I came to Korea, this is all I was familiar with. Macaroons. I had never heard of macarons before, but now in Korea these are extremely popular. You see the little shops everywhere and at coffee shops, and you can buy them at grocery stores. So, little pronunciation, macaroon. Try it with me. Macaroon, macaron, macron. Now, let's take that a little bit farther. So we have macron, macaron, macaroon, macaroni. Now we have Marconi. Who is Marconi? Marconi was an Italian inventor. He's basically credited with inventing he was an Italian inventor, and he basically invented he worked on like wireless communication, invented like telegraph system. He is basically credited with being the inventor of radio, like wireless transmission. So made a great contribution to communication and to society, really, with inventing radio. He also won the Nobel Prize. So he's an Italian inventor, invented radio. And then we have Mickey Rooney. Mickey is his first name. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was an actor back, I think, after World War II. He is shorter than me. I'm pretty short. He's a short actor, but he was the highest paid male actor in Hollywood at that time. He was in great demand, worked with all of the leading ladies at the time, all of the famous actresses. He would be like, today we think of leading actors like Tom Cruise or George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon. He was them back in his time. He was the highest paid male actor at that time. Okay, so pronunciation. Try them with me. Macron, macaron, macaroon, macaroni, Marconi, Mickey Rooney. His is a little different, but it still kind of fits. Macron, macaron, macaroon, macaroni, Marconi, Mickey Rooney, and but you might be familiar with Packed Coffee here. I was walking by this one day, and on their menu they had a mac and cheese bread. Basically a macaroni and cheese sandwich. Macaroni and cheese on a hot dog bun. And you can see here, compared to a water bottle, it was fairly large. And it has the macaroni and cheese inside a hot dog bun. It tasted okay. It wasn't the best macaroni and cheese, but it was all right. It was a little chewy, though, because what they did was they put the entire thing in the microwave oven, and so the bread kind of turned into rubber. Bread doesn't work very well in microwave ovens, but it was okay. I ate it. It wasn't great, but it wasn't too bad. So we had Macron, macaron, macaroon, macaroni, Marconi, Mickey Rooney, and the Macarena. So we have another one there too, the Macarena. So, Macron, macaron, macaroon, Macarena, macaroni, Marconi, Mickey Rooney. So, got some very similar sounding words there. Now here's another thing I want to show you. This is something I saw online, and somebody had posted a picture of this building, the side of a building here, and on the side here they have a word. Can you read that? Obviously that is not printed like this, but it is written in cursive writing. So for example, if I take the word cursive here that I've just written, and I change it into a cursive font, let me just use this one. And that one looks really small, so let me make it larger. So it's written in cursive, kind of like this is. Okay? Can you read it now? They have kind of this tail at the beginning here coming up. That's sort of just decoration. It doesn't mean anything. And actually on the first letter of a word, especially as a capital letter, you would normally not use this part. That's a C, and then you come forward, and that's the A, up and down, and then you'll cross it at the end. That's a T. The little loop here is the E, and this is an R. It looks kind of like this one. Okay. There's another way we do those, though. This is one way to do an R. There's another way to write an R in cursive. Let me see if I can find another font here that shows that better. Okay, this one shows that more that style. So this is also written in cursive, where the R, you kind of come up like this, make a little line at the top, and then short line to the right, and then come back down. So this is a different style on the R, more like this style. Then from there you got the I, then you got two humps here. What is that? But if you got two humps, this person who posted that said, oh, this is wrong. That's incorrect. Catering. And then, of course, you have the G here, which you probably recognize. Now, when you have two humps like this in cursive, what do you actually have? HIJKLMNOP. Okay, actually the M and the N here don't show up very well. Let me try that other font. So, here we go. Let me try this other font here. Because different fonts will have a different style for each one. But you can see here the IJKLMNOP. So what happens? For example, if you have an L here, then when you make the M, you actually make this little loop to come up. So that gives you a hump at the beginning and then two more humps. So actually an M in cursive has three humps. An N, you have the line to connect right here. And then you have like a regular N. So you end up with two humps. So this, in cursive, this is an N. But the person who posted this thought, oh, they spelled it wrong. It's an M. Cater-im. Cater-img. Okay? They thought this was a spelling mistake. Actually, it is not. Okay? This is spelled correctly. Now, if you don't know catering, that's like food service provided for an event or a company. For example, if you go to a wedding hall, you don't provide your own food, but they would cater the meal. They provide the meal service. Or you can even do that like if you have a meeting or something at your company. You can have food brought in by by a restaurant or just a food service company, a catering company that provides the meals instead of going to a restaurant or something. And some restaurants do catering. For example, like at my niece's wedding a couple of years ago, instead of having like a big buffet or something, the wedding was outdoors. It was outside, and they had there's a Mexican restaurant they really liked, and so they delivered to the wedding. They set up like a buffet line, but for tacos, and they catered the wedding. Okay, so to cater a meal is to bring the food and deliver it. So some restaurants do this. A lot of hotels do catering services, either at the hotel itself for meetings and conferences, weddings, banquets, or some will cater at a different location, maybe at your company or somewhere where you're having some other place where you're having an event. So the point here is that this is written correctly. That is an N, which it should be. The word is catering. Okay? But this person thought it was a mistake. And so people were like, no, no. In cursive handwriting, an N, a lowercase n, you come up. This is kind of like the connector. And then this is like a regular printed in. You print it in like that. So this is the connector coming in. You make the N shape, and then you connect it to the next letter. Okay? And some people showed that. For the R, which is where there were a problem, this is how I would normally make an R. Okay? You kind of come around, come up, make a little point at the top, right here, and then a little tiny line kind of to the right, and then you come down. Okay? This is how they did it on that sign, okay? Which it depends on where you live. So they kind of come up, and then they kind of make like a normal printed R almost. Straight down, and then the little line to the right, a little hook there, and then connect it to the next letter. Okay. Um, they don't teach. This is the style I learned in the U.S. for an R. Okay. BERT, B-E-R-T, fart, F-A-R-T. All right. So this, they thought it was a mistake. It's actually correct. Now, in cursive writing, just like in print or whatever, there can be misunderstandings. So, for example, this says how to summon a, looks like demon, D-E-M-O-N. A demon is like a devil, okay, an evil spirit. So he thought it said how to summon a demon, but when he did it, the magician here, or the wizard, actually ended up with a lemon, because on the L here, they have a little tail leading into it. They made that tail a little too big, okay? If you're just writing it, it should look, if you're writing the word lemon like that, it should look more like this. Sorry. I don't know why it's taking away my formatting. There we go. It should just look more like this. And actually, this one they don't have a tail at all. I would have a little bit of a tail leading into it, but this is basically what it looks like. And he says, "Man, I hate cursive. I hate cursive because I thought I was going to get a demon. I actually only got a lemon." So he misread what that said. If you want a demon, that would be more like an evil spirit. Okay. So, like Satan. For example, here we have some cookies for Satan. Wait, would you buy cookies for Satan? For the devil? I hope not. But who would you buy cookies for? At Christmas time, you would buy cookies for Santa. So this is a common misspelling. People get those confused, or they switch the letters around. You would actually want cookies for Santa, not Satan. Okay, don't buy cookies for Satan. So here somebody drew a little thing, says, know the difference. This is Santa, like Santa Claus. Okay, Santa Claus is the one who brings you gifts at Christmas. Santa. This is Satan, the devil, and this is Santana, who is a rock guitar player. Okay, but these really get confused, Santa and Satan. People know the difference between the words, but they mix up the spelling. Okay, and then of course we have things like the Santa Fe. Santa Fe is actually a city in the state of New Mexico. If you look at the U.S., here's California, here's San Francisco, Los Angeles, Arizona is here, New Mexico here, and here's the state of Texas. Okay, Santa Fe is named after a city in New Mexico. All right, guys, I am going to stop there for today. That's just another editor's challenge that we're not going to worry about. If you wanted to look at that. So I'll just leave the image there if you want to look at it and play with it. But we're not going to cover that one this semester. So that is it. Remember, of course, that you have your exam next week, Monday and Thursday, both days. Okay, so make sure you prepare for that. Monday exam, you will have it will cover business letter structure and format. So like the parts of a business letter, how to format it, like block style, modified block style, personal business style. It will look at all of those, okay? The parts of a business letter, and it will, so really focus on those cover letters, okay? The bad cover letter, the good cover letter, That's what will be on, that's the type of questions that you'll see on Monday. And you'll also have something like this, like an editor's challenge, where you will have to correct some mistakes or find the correct word or word form or spelling or punctuation or grammar to use. Okay? So make sure you prepare for that, and that's what you'll see on Monday. Thursday's section will be basically multiple choice, maybe a few short answer questions, but that will cover a lot more of the other grammar, subject-verb agreement questions, capitalization, um, word form, sentence fragments, comma splices, run-on sentences, and a lot of the vocabulary from the semester. We've had a whole bunch of homonyms and similar sounding words, lots and lots of vocabulary, so you will see a lot more of that on the test on Thursday. Okay? Alright guys, have a great day, and I'll see you on Zoom on Monday. Thanks for listening.